Welcome to Divcasts from University of Chicago Divinity School. For more of our podcasts and information about our terms of use, please see our website, divinity.uchicago.edu/podcasts.
Hello everybody, welcome to today's Anshe Emet here at the Divinity School. I'm Karen Wine, the Director of Communications here, and I organize this series. So thank you all for coming out on kind of a rainy day. Before we get started, I want to do our usual housekeeping. I want to thank our student, crew, and our chef Blair for today's perfect rainy day lunch, isn't it? Yeah. So be kind, clean up after yourselves. We have compost in the back. If you could compost your paper and it looks like your bowls are composted. Yeah? Yes. So compost your bowls and your leftovers and your plates and any other things that go in the garbage. Please put your silverware into our soapy bags. If you can take a minute to fold up your chair, that saves us a second. So if you can do that. And if you could take a moment right now to turn off your cell phones or whatever it is that makes noise. Are there any family announcements? You know it?
Good afternoon, everyone. For Divinity School students, tomorrow is our annual fall open house. So we will have several students in Swift Hall who are planning to apply to many of our degree programs. And so you'll see new faces walking around. So
Look happy.
look happy. Tomorrow. I'm sure you will all be hospitable and answer questions, etc. There is a DSA 6 to 8:30. Yep. Yeah. 8:30. Event that's part of that. So and the Nuveen lecture is also tomorrow at 4:30 with Don York, who is the Baptist Theological Union's board will be in the building. Lots of students. So it's a big day tomorrow.
I'm going to piggyback on that. So our annual Nuveen lecture is tomorrow at 4:30. Our speaker every year is from a different unit in the university. And tomorrow's speaker is Don York, who's in astrophysics. And the title of his talk is, "It's not the heat, it's the humility." So some of you may or may not recognize this quote. I think this talk will be totally accessible to everybody. So please come to hear Professor York. Here.
The Craft of Teaching has two upcoming events that promise to be very exciting. Today at 4 o'clock in Swift 201, there's a session on creativity. Creativity as an academic virtue and also just as a pillar for the future of society. Our speaker is Mark Maxwell, who is a published author of fiction and teacher of English at a prestigious high school in the area. I can't confirm or disconfirm that by the end of the session we'll be all standing on your desks. Next week on Friday is the quarterly Dean's Forum seminar. This quarter's forum is on online learning and relating between analog and digital modes of pedagogy. Again, promises to be very exciting. Today at 4, just show up, no RSVP necessary. Next Friday we ask that you RSVP, you'll get an email about how to do that, assume if you haven't already.
Anyone else? Okay. Next week, our guest speaker is Jack Gilbert from some area of the biology department. We're going to be speaking on microbes and how they control your life. But he runs the Earth Biomicrobe Project and the Home Microbe Project, which will show you where all microbes in your house. Without microbes, we wouldn't be alive. Okay, so it's really awesome. So I'm thrilled to be able to announce today's guests for lunch. One of whom is our very own MDiv student, Elijah Kindred. He's joined today by community members Maxine Handelman and Anne Lubeck, who are from Anshe Emet synagogue. Where's that? Near North? From the near north side. Lakeview. Well, it's up there. It's not in my house. The title of their talk is Building Bridges Between the Jewish with African American communities and building a playground in Bronzeville from the ground up in one day. So a long title, I'm going to let them explain the genesis and meaning of the title. So please join me in welcoming our guest panel for today.
Making sure my cell phone is on. Cool. So, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. All right, so first I would like to say thank you to the deans and to the administration of the university for allowing this opportunity for me and the Anshe Emet community to display some of the work that we've been doing. Secondly, I'd like to think that you all came out for the presentation, but the food is really good, so I'm glad the food drew you out to come to this presentation. So first we'll do a couple introductions. So my name is Elijah Kindred. Most of you all know me. I'm a third year MDiv here, and I serve at Bright Star Church, Chicago, and we'll get more into that later.
Good afternoon, I'm Ann Luban, and as will be relevant later, my son Mark is a key character in our story today, and I am a member at Anshe Emet synagogue, and professionally I work at Jewish Child and Family Services.
I am Maxine Handelman. My daughter is partners in crime with Ann's son, Mark. My husband, Jacob, is here as well. He decided to let us do the talking, but it's his daughter, Jacob. And I work as the early childhood education specialist for United Synagogue, which is the umbrella organization for the conservative movement. So I work nationally with early childhood professionals across the country, and as the young families educator at Anshe Emet. So now.
Cool. So first we're going to give you an outline of how the presentation is going to go. One of the first things you're going to see is the celebration playground video. And this is the initial video that started this entire campaign, okay? The next thing is that there's going to be a brief overview of the historical relationship between the African American and Jewish community. Third, we'll talk about how did this relationship formulate between Bright Star and Anshe Emet. Next, we'll actually talk about the fun stuff, the playground deal. And then finally, we'll talk about how the relationships that we have has also created the Bronzeville Dream Center. So now we're going into the celebration playground video.
My favorite thing on the playground is the monkey bars because you can do a million things on it. My favorite thing on the playground is the swings because when I swing really high, I just feel like I'm on top of the world.
It's about communities taking not only leaps of faith, but leaps of action. That's right. So when two families came to me and said, our children want to build a playground, and they want to bring it to Bright Star Church.
Usually people do things that only last one day, and this will last for a long time.
The opportunity to design our own playground or our own playground is pretty good because not every kid can design a playground.
I would include a slide, a jungle gym, swings.
And to hear it coming and being birthed from children is amazing. It's going to be the families from Anshe Emet and from Bright Star who are going to physically build this. And I think it's a monument to what can be, and it's a monument for the future, but it's also, I hope, going to be an example for other communities.
I think it's cool because it's two really different communities joining as one and working together.
Today and for a long time, hopefully, we get to see the Jewish community and our community together. It's a playground that will be put right there at the Bright Star on the fourth floor of the college building, inside the yard, where not only the congregants, the children can go out there and have a good time, but also the programs that Bright Star Community Outreach does with our after-school program and then the summer program. It's not just building a park, but it's actually building people. We need some folks to partner with this effort, whether it be individuals or corporate donations. We're looking for folks to start. So whether you can give $18, $180, or $1,800, it's inconsequential. What we want to know is that everyone's involved in this sacred work. I look forward to the day when we can come together and celebrate something that we've built together.
So this is the video that started off this campaign. So, and we'll talk more about that. But in order for that video to take place, I think it's important that we travel back just a little bit. And talk about the relationships between these two communities. Now we have to understand that there's a lot of history between the Jewish and African American community. You have many critiques out there about it. You have Cornel West, who partnered with the rabbi and wrote a book about it. And there are others that have talked a lot about this, but for this particular context, I think this picture right here, it tells it all. It tells the story behind how this project took place. And so here we have the infamous picture of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. And so one thing I want us to understand is, the first thing is that they're linked arm in arm together. And this is very important because we have two individuals who have different faiths, but they still have the ability to link arm in arm together. And one thing that makes this happen is that if you see on one side we have the Torah, and on the other side you have the cross. And I think the thing that makes this happen is the fact that both individuals understand the importance of each other when it comes to their faith. So for example, Rabbi Heschel, he talks about in a letter that he wrote commenting about his work with Dr. King, he talks about the fact that how Dr. King really uplifted the Exodus story and how that was very important in bringing this work together. And although there are other figures that Dr. King could have highlighted, but the Exodus story, it's one that resonated with both the African American and the Jewish community. And so because of that, that began to bring these two individuals together. And not only that, but they were just friends, you know, like they liked each other. So it was more than just a civil rights movement, but that was an actual relationship here. And so so once again, we have this unity here which incorporates the Torah as well as the cross, a reverend, and a rabbi. So, how do we go from Rabbi Heschel and Dr. King to Bright Star and Anshe Emet? So, we need to understand who is Bright Star and who is Anshe Emet. So here we have Bright Star Church, Chicago. It is located at 735 East 44th Street. Actually, and so in simple terms, it's right on the corner of 44th and Cottage Grove. So if you're taking the CTA, you just take the number 4 bus, go all the way down to 44th, ring the bell, he lets you off, and you walk to the left, and it's the only building on the block. So because it's the only building on the block, we say this church has this block on lock. So, yes. And so some interesting things I think we need to know about Bright Star is that right now when you look at Bright Star, it's the only building on the block. But this congregation started in the 50s, and so it started by Reverend Stovall. And so from there it began to grow, and around the church was CHA housing, right? And so when I first came here, I wondered, I was like, why is it that this church, which is small, like has security guards? Like, he's not that important, right? Well, as I began to just listen to the narrative of the church, I began to understand that, hey, that empty space was CHA housing. And there were times when they were worshiping that they would actually hear gunshots. And so they would be worshiping and then they would have to duck. And so I was like, wow, this is very interesting. And so it's just, and so now that CH housing is gone, it's just now within the culture of the church, you know, to make sure that things are secure. So that's one thing about Bright Star. So the next is Anshe Emet.
So Anshe Emet Synagogue is a congregation of nearly 1,200 family units, which is a little over 4,000 people, 3 times a year. Actually, a lot of life that happens in that building. It's in Lakeview, a couple blocks from Wrigley Field, and so the synagogue's been there just over 100 years. 30 years. Yeah, so it's been there a long time. It was a Reform synagogue in that building, and then became Anshe Emet in that space. And what else would we add about the congregation?
Well, I think what's important about Anshe Emet is it's an urban congregation, so there is a fair amount of transients within the young adult population, but there are also a huge number of older adults that have grown up and lived there and been members and had their kids go to school there. There's young families. It's really one of the few congregations that continues to maintain that level of membership and have congregants who are from birth to, well, my father-in-law is 99, and he's there all the time. So, when we really actually, there's a member who's well over 100. So there's a huge range of people in that congregation, and many of them have been there for a long time. And in addition to the congregation, which has a religious school, afternoon Hebrew school, and a Sunday school, there is also a day school that is on the same property. It has a separate board of directors and a separate staff, so there's a lot that happens in and around that building. A lot of people who come into the building. There's a lot of also additional programming, adult programming that is religious, that's educational, that's social, that's artistic, that bring a lot of people into the building and in connection to the congregation. So let's do that.
So now that we know Bright Star and Anshe Emet, who are these leaders? So the leader of Bright Star is Pastor Christopher Harris, Sr. And so one thing a couple things I want to highlight about Pastor Harris is that when I first met him, so I did my second year internship here. And one of the first things that we did, instead of going to his office and sitting down in the chair and having like a one-on-one conversation, he was like, hey, let's get in the car. So we got in the car and we just began to drive around Bronzeville. And so he was like, what's that? And he's pointing out like an abandoned building or abandoned, just empty lots. And I'd say, that's an abandoned building or that's an empty lot. And he's like, actually, that's potential. And he was like, this is my purpose of here. He said, my purpose is to serve the Bronzeville community. He said, he began to share with me, he said, the motto that the staff has here is that if this church, if Bright Star Church is on fire, he wants the church to be so entrenched into serving the community so that everyone in the community feels that they need to come out with their teapot filled with water, trying to put the fire out, because the church is just that vital to the community. And so it began to reshift some of my thinking regarding church and regarding serving the community. Also, to support that, we had after-school programming, and most of this came under his leadership, which he's been the leader there for, I want to say, the past 15, 16 years. So we have after-school programming, we have parenting classes that take place. We partner with the schools that are connected with us, which is Carter G. Woodson and King High School. And so we do many different things within the community. There's also the Bright Star Community Outreach, which does a lot of things with DCHF and a lot of just things like that really pushes itself out into the community. I guess another thing under the leadership of Pastor Harris is that the church, it has, and through the Bright Star Community Outreach, it serves the community from the perspective of like it employs many of its employees are from the community, not from the church. So, and I thought that was great to hear. So I think there's a CVPP, I forget, it's a jobs program. And so most of that jobs program are from the community itself. And many of the members are from the community. So many individuals are walking 2 blocks to come to the church. And that's very important when you're talking about, I believe, when you're talking about church from the African American perspective, but really serving your community and making sure, or trying to make sure that many of your congregants are from the community and not just transients who come in from other communities and come into the church and then they're not invested into that community. So that's a couple of things about Pastor Harris. Now we have Rabbi Michael Siegel.
So Rabbi Siegel has been at Anshe Emet for over 30 years. And one of the things that personally I find most incredible is that often what happens if you've been in the same position, we've seen this, many of us in many places, for a long time, there's sort of a stagnancy that happens. And that is the exact opposite of Rabbi Siegel. He continues to push Anshe Emet, to push himself, to push all of us to do better. To do better for the community at Anshe Emet, to do better for the Lakeview community, the larger Chicago Jewish community, the larger Chicago secular community, the world community, Israel. Like, just really is always looking to innovate. What can we do better? Bringing in new staff to do something better, more innovative, involving learning, involving service. And that's a commitment that he has. And he has also an incredible commitment to social action and social justice. And so, that sort of is important. I mean, there's other pieces as well, clearly, around his leadership and around his scholarship. But I think that those are some of the most important pieces to know about him and his role as the senior rabbi at Anshe Emet. He also has a national reputation. We have a strong program in the synagogue community of assistant rabbis who are, young rabbis right out of school. And Anshe Emet is considered to be one of the most plum placements if you get this job as assistant rabbi in terms of their training to be a rabbi in your own congregation. So the list of assistant rabbis who've been under him and now where they've gone elsewhere in the community is extraordinarily impressive. And that speaks to his ability and his interest in teaching, as well as sort of the craft, the craft of education. So teaching the craft as well as serving the community.
The only thing I'd add about Rabbi Siegel is that he, within this large congregation, he's not afraid to open the doors to other experiences as well. So we participate in what originally was called the Alternative Minyan, a group of people who didn't want to go into the main service and wanted our own thing, a little different style. And Rabbi Siegel said, "Come, have a home here." And now now it's the Rose Crown Minyan, and we're a fully integrated part of the synagogue community. And he's opened his doors to other kinds of communities as well, in a way that another rabbi might be afraid that it would take away. He opens the door and it just adds.
And so, speaking of open the door, you may say, okay, like, how did these guys meet? Like, what is the story behind here? So, the narrative that I've been told and given is that Pastor Harris, his mentor, was supposed to be at a meeting where Rabbi Siegel would be. But his mentor was unable to be there, so he said, "Hey, Chris, do you mind taking my place?" Well, Pastor Harris goes there, and when he goes there, he and Rabbi Siegel, they connect, and they begin to see that, hey, we have similar interests. And so I want to say for the past 3 years, they have partnered together, linked up together. And so that's how this partnership has formulated. We've done things such as Anshe Emet has come over to Bright Star, and we've done things with the Martin Luther King. On Martin Luther King Day, we also, you guys came over to the church and we did the inauguration of President Barack Obama. We came over
Between us and we sang.
Yeah, and we sang, yeah. We did sing, we did Seder. We did the Seder at Anshe Emet as well. Yeah, we also did it at the JUF, the Jewish United Fund. So the relationship that you see here between Pastor Harris and Rabbi Siegel, it's more than just a surface level relationship. This is a relationship that's really trying to bring two different communities together while yet respecting each other.
Can I just add something? Something actually that you didn't see. You weren't in the room, but Max and I were both in the room. In the video that you saw at the beginning, there was footage between Rabbi Siegel and Pastor Harris. Well, there's just a couple minutes that ended up onto that video, but there was well over an hour of a conversation that Max and I and Pastor Carter from Bright Star were privileged, and I really say privileged, to sit and watch. We had goosebumps as we were watching the two of them talk. They knew they were being filmed, and they knew there were opportunities to use this film for more than just this project, for other things. But at one point, Pastor Harris, the conversation went on, Pastor Harris said that he referenced Abraham Joshua Heschel and Martin Luther Kindred. They referenced those two, and he said, if we only talk about what Rabbi Heschel and Dr. King did in the past and do nothing together moving forward, we're not honoring their legacy. Mm-hmm. It's only if we come together as communities now that we're truly honoring their legacy. And that there's a lot of moments of what they said that really stuck with me, but I think that was one of them. And so I think that speaks to the relationship between them and their commitment to bringing the communities together. But it was also beautiful that the two of them have this incredible respect for each other, and I think I would say love for each other. And they laugh together, and they make each other laugh, and so just watching the two of them and interact is truly inspirational.
So because of this relationship, we get to the fun stuff. We get to the celebration playground, and this is where I'm gonna let the parents, they're really gonna take over and just go at it however they want to.
Yeah. So this is Ariana and Mark. They've been friends since before they were born.
Ari is...
Ariana, Ari,
that's your daughter.
and Mark. Right, so Ariana is my daughter, and Mark is, and Jacob's daughter, and and Mark is Anne's son. They've been friends since before they were born. Mark is 7 weeks older, and they've been, really in class together since they were 3 in a small school, so always together. And so they've grown up together. Anne so in the Jewish community, boys become a bar mitzvah when they are 13, and depending on which part of the Jewish community you're in, girls become a bat mitzvah, a daughter of the commandment, as opposed to a son of the commandment, when they're either 12 or 13. And so Anne's been hacking us since Ari was born that Ari should have her bat mitzvah at 13 so the two of them could celebrate, have a party together. And indeed they did. So Ari and Mark they will become bar and bat mitzvah in the next couple weeks. Mark on November 1st and Ari on November 14th, 15th. And so they, you want me to talk more about what a bar mitzvah is? No. Okay, so that's coming up. But so as we approached we knew they were going to have their party together, which made sense because they share all the same friends and all of that. And so neither one of them was really interested in a stereotypical dance party with a DJ type of thing. And we kicked around ideas of, so what then would the celebration look like? And just tap me if you want to jump in. And so we thought about, so part of the whole bar bat mitzvah experience is doing a mitzvah project, a service project, and kids do all sorts of things. They serve food at shelters, they collect toiletries, all those kinds of things. And so we talked about, well, what if the celebration was the mitzvah project? We have a cousin who had a beautiful, lavish party, but in one room of the party, they were building bookshelves for a shelter that the bar mitzvah boy was volunteering in. And we thought, well, that's amazing that they're doing this work at the party. What if the whole party was this work? And then what would that look like? So lots of things came together. Mayor Rahm Emanuel, for his daughter's bar mitzvah about 3-4 years ago, they joined a kaboom playground build to celebrate her bat mitzvah. They did it a little differently than us. And that story was in the newspaper and was brought to the kids' attention, and they kind of like that. And we're very lucky that we have a friend who works for Kaboom, which is this playground organization. And so we sat down with her and talked about what would this look like and what would we have to do. And the kids were blown away and completely invested from the beginning in wanting to make this happen. So we started moving towards making the celebration of building a playground and celebrating their becoming bar mitzvah with the building of a playground.
So Kaboom is a national nonprofit that does community builds for playgrounds all over the country. And typically they partner with a corporation. So I went last year to observe a build that CarMax funded. So CarMax paid the money for the build, sent their staff on a kind of a employee service day and bonding day with this local school that needed a playground. But that was really the relationship Carmex funded it, sent the workers, and then that was the beginning and end of the relationship between the two. And Mark and Ariana were very interested in, well, we don't want to just kind of helicopter in, do something, and leave. We want this to be a place that we, have relationships, get to know them. Like, can we build with people that we know? Can we go play on a playground again? What's our ongoing relationship? And so we, at one point, somebody sort of realizing that around the same time that we were going to Bright Star was coming to Anshe Emet, and how amazing it would be if we could build this playground, if this was something that the Bright Star community wanted and needed, but we built this playground with Bright Star. So we went to Rabbi Siegel and said, we have an idea, right? And so we talked to him, he spoke with Pastor Harris, and we sat down and started talking about what would it look like if we were to celebrate Mark and Ari's B'nai Mitzvah, their Bar Mitzvah and Bat Mitzvah, through building a playground together with the Bright Star community. So what was involved in that, well, first and foremost, was raising the funds for that. It's $90,000 to build a basic playground with a boom, which our families would have loved to have been able to just write that check. It would have been a lot easier. It's not the socioeconomic class that either of us are in. It's just not possible. So we had to look at other models, and we initially had gone to look at corporate. We thought we could get a bunch of corporations to do this, and we were getting no traction on that. So we decided to embark on a rather ambitious crowdfunding campaign. We used Indiegogo, which is a crowdfunding number of people nodding their heads. And the video that we showed at the beginning is a video that's on our Indiegogo website, or it's still up, but the website goes down. And we started a campaign to raise money for this, using that video as the sort of launching off point, but sending it out via email, lots and lots of Facebook, Twitter, which Max commented that if I could tweet it, but I have no followers, it really was meaningless. When I tweeted it, I did. So Max didn't realize I did all the tweets.
I got some followers.
And we're able to, in the 60 days maximum that Indiegogo allows for their campaigns, be able to raise on that alone just under $45,000 from nearly 500 over 500 individual donors
from around the world,
all over, largely Chicago, but there were 2 from Singapore, there were a number from Europe, from Israel, from
Finland. That was my favorite.
Random countries, like people who heard about it through Indiegogo, who heard about it through the press that really people were just inspired by, I think, so many pieces of this project, inspired by the idea of 2 12-year-olds in having this idea and having this dream, inspired by the idea of the Jewish community and this Christian church community coming together, inspired by white and black, by north side and south side, particularly in our divided community of Chicago, coming together to build something together. I think from there we'll...
And so before we go to the next slide, I want to say she mentioned Anne mentioned about coming in, just flying in, putting the playground on. One of the things that we really talked about and discussed came to the table, and we were like, hey, we both need to understand that this is a partnership. That this is not just, this is Anshe Emet doing this for Bright Star. No, this is Bright Star. We are partners. This is a true partnership. And so with that 500, there were people from the Bronzeville community and just everywhere we really came together and made this thing happen as a unit instead of, an imbalance of power. There is really a sharing of the responsibility.
Well, right, and actually a key to that is that part of the kaboom model that we threw a lot of the kaboom model sort of on its head, but part of the kaboom model that we rejected is that, for example, in that CarMax bill, the CarMax came up with 90% of the funding, and the community partner where the playground was being built was required to come with 10% of the funding. And so Kaboom wanted us to do a similar model, and we said, no, we are going to jointly raise 100% of the funding. We are going to do our fundraising gently, and they pushed back on us. Well, you want to make sure, so no, we're going to do this together. So we created the video together. We created the Indiegogo site together. We talked about what the perks would be, we created, and in addition to the dollars that were in the Indiegogo site, Rabbi Siegel and Pastor Harris together solicited other donors, and ultimately were successful in soliciting 2 donors who contributed the bulk of the remaining funds to make this build happen. And it wasn't one person going on behalf of the other, it was the two of them together walking and saying, we are doing this.
And actually, the individuals they talked to, like, both knew it. Both knew each other. So Rabbi Siegel knew the individual, Pastor Harris knew the individual. So it was a very mutual relationship going on. So more so the fun stuff. So with the playground deal, there are 4 things that happen. There is design day, prep day 1, prep day 2, and then the actual deal. Okay, so for design day, the young people, they came together, right? They came together, hey, how are you doing? You get to know each other. And then there was given sheets of paper, and they just began to draw. Draw what you think your playground wanted to look like. So we had these younger people drawing their playgrounds, and we had even older teens. They were there and they were drawing the playgrounds that they wanted to play on. And then towards the end of the day, we began to say, okay, so what colors did you want? All right. So they began to pick colors. And so once everything was done, so after that day, Kaboom took all of these ideas from the young people and came up with 3 models. And from those 3 models, Mark and Ari, they came back to Bright Star, and they had them on the Jumbotron, and the young people themselves were saying, well, we like this, we don't like this, we don't like that color, we do like this color, can we get this, can we get that? And so from there, we came up with the model. You want to add anything on that?
Well, no, I was just saying that it was that part of the model was that the kids vote. Right, so Mark and Ariana facilitated the conversation, but we were very clear with them from the beginning and thought that it was really important for them to experience too. Yes, it was their idea, but it wasn't truly going to be their playground that they played on every day. So they got to facilitate the conversation, but it's the kids in Bronzeville who voted on these 3 different models based on the input that they had given, which playground did they want. And that was, I think, a really powerful lesson both for Mark and Ariana, but also empowering for the kids who got to vote. And it was actually really obvious. We put up one, and it was like, oh, okay. And there was the second one that went, ooh. There was the third one, and they said, oh, okay. And we almost didn't have to take the vote, but we did. And the same thing happened with the colors. And it turned out it was not the ones that initially, at least Mark or Ariana, had picked as their favorites. Yeah. And we went with the ones that the kids in Bronzeville picked, because this was going to be the playground that they played on. And here it is.
And so here's the design that we came up with. And sorry if you guys can't see it in the back, but you'll see the real deal coming up. All right, so that was design day, right? Well, then we had prep day. On prep day, the truck came.
So then there was like 8 weeks in between where they had to order the equipment.
And we spoke on the phone with our project manager from Kaboom. Every week we had Bright Star and Lee Bandelman people on
Lee Band plus Hamilton equals Lee Bandelman.
So we had these conference calls every week that we went over what we had accomplished and checked off our list, and went over what we needed to accomplish in the next week. So that's
Right, because part of being a community build meant there were lots of things that weren't covered. That $90,000 paid for the playground really paid for the equipment, the ground cover, the actual equipment, the making of the equipment, the insurance, cleaning up the ground ahead of time, all those things. But there were other things that needed to happen that we needed to bring together as, again, our community. And again, a lot of times in these other more traditional Kaboom builds, those are things that are all on the responsibility of one partner or the other, and they don't talk about them. Yeah. But here, we made all of those decisions together. And we'll talk through, I think, in some of the challenges, some of those specific decisions that we had to make. But there was, in those 8 weeks, there was a lot that needed to happen to be able to get to prep
day 1. All right. So prep day 1, once again, so all the trucks that came in, and so we had to empty out the truck of the equipment. And then prior to prep day 1, I think about 2 weeks prior, we had to clear the land of all of the grass. And then on prep day, they were digging the holes for the foundation of the playground. Then they had like 3 18-wheel trucks come in and just dump mulch on it. It was a lot of mulch. And mind you, all of these individuals that's doing this are volunteers. The only 2 experts we had was Evan, our project manager, and MJ, which is his assistant. That was it. So everybody else are volunteers, okay? So these are volunteers that came out from the community. Actually, Don, he's a member of the church, and the other 2 just heard about it from one of our church members. And so they did all of the lumber cutting. they did something in maybe 2 hours. It probably took us like 4 or 5 hours. So hats off to those guys. And then, by the way, this is our first year MDiv student, Rodney Carter, here. We had to move all of the cement and stuff like that. So Prep Day 1 was really getting this stuff together, all right? Prep Day 2 was we had other community partners. This fraternity came out and they really came in and they helped us bring like all the, so Prep Day 1 was like outside stuff. Prep Day 2 was more so like getting the church stuff together, all right? So with all of these volunteers, I think over 200.
Here's what I know. I know we ordered 425 of those blue shirts, and they were gone within 2 hours, and there were probably 100 people didn't have them. There were over 500 people at Build Day at some point in time.
Within that.
They wanted 200. We brought them 500.
So these volunteers plus our special volunteers here. You have Blair, which is chef for today. We have faculty here. Yes, we got Wesley Stein. And we have our PhD student Matt. And I looked at the photo and I was like, weird. We have an MDiv, MA, PhD, and faculty.
Can I get this picture?
Yes, you can get this picture. You can get this picture. And also, the university from the hospital side donated some tools. So the university has played a vital role within this. So we took this right here and we turned it into this. This is the building of the playground.
It's not middle of the day.
Yeah, middle of the day. We got people carrying a tarp over. There's Ann doing tarp. We have our cement crew that's over there. We have our videographers. As you go, this is a chalkboard that's outside. On the other side is a mural that says Celebration Playground. The guy in the purple, he's with the boom. He was not supposed to be there, but he's Jewish, right? So he worked it out where he can come and be a part of this playground deal. And outside here, you have people building benches and tables, yeah, this is the CHA lab. So, and behind the orange fence is like the kids area where they're drawing stones. So this is the playground, and this is what came about from that day. And so top views of the playground is this, and then on the back side we have this. The only problem I have with this is they should have made the zip line like 3 or 4 feet higher. I was highly disappointed about that. So, and we're wrapping up here. So some of the successes that we did was the playground was built, which is a very good thing. And for me, there was intentional and thoughtful connection from the beginning to the end, which is so important because sometimes it's, let's just go into the community, tell the community what they want and what they need. But this is different than that. Another thing was that we all worked together to build a playground. So it wasn't Anshe Emet, it wasn't Bright Star, it was, we need to come up with a word like Bronzeville.
But that last one was Mark's comment, because Elijah said, I need a success, tell me a success of the day. And I turned to Mark and I said, Mark, what was the success of the day? And he's like, you turned 13 last week, and he said, we all worked together to build the playground. I was like, okay, I'm gonna type this in. That was his thought of what was the success of the day that stood out for him.
Another success is the kids from both communities, they see themselves differently now, which is very important. I know the young people at Bright Star, it's like, did we really do this? Mm-hmm. Like, we were just thinking this thing, and now we look out our window at the church and it's there, and we're going to play on it next Sunday. So that was one of the really important things there. Some of the challenges, preparing lunch menu for dinner. Like that was a challenge. So we have the Jewish community who there are varying levels of keeping culture, if I'm saying that correctly, and then you have the African American community, and so it was like we had to honor both religious traditions as well as just cultural traditions, and so.
Because our challenge was, I have a friend whose husband works for Ben & Jerry's, and they came to me and said, we want to donate Ben & Jerry's for the bill. So we said, great, we'll have Ben & Jerry's ice cream at the end, and we'll have dairy for lunch so that we don't have a kosher issue. And then we had that conversation in the food committee, and the Bright Star Bronzeville people said, no, we have meat with our meals. Our meals are meat. So we toyed very briefly with the having a non-kosher section and a dairy section. So we moved the ice cream to 11 a.m. and we had the kosher Milt's barbecue truck come at 12 and have lunch. And then we made sure that all the snacks in the afternoon were carb, were not dairy or meat.
And the Kaboom folks said, oh, you guys take play really seriously. You're having ice cream first. And we said, no, we just take ice cream really seriously.
So another challenge which we mentioned already briefly was fundraising, making that happen. And this, I think this is for everybody on the team. Maintaining a balance between the logistics of the playground and the rest of our world. This, you can really get consumed in all of the logistics and making sure that everybody's supposed to do what they need to do, and it can be a lot. But balancing that, was something that we all did. So, some things that we learned. Personally, I learned that 75% of what I eat is already kosher. So they gave us this package of oh, here's all, and I'm like, are you serious? So now my roommate is Matt. I'm like, hey Matt, this is kosher right here. And then I had some pops. It's a Quaker Oat. I think it's Quaker Oat. And I looked at it, I was like, this is not kosher. What? So the crowd fundraising, we learned about that. What does it mean to put on a campaign like this, and to actually learn the steps that we need to take place. How to use social media. Twitter, all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, right, because there's a difference between using social media, using Facebook as a social outlet. I'm interested in what you're doing and what you have for dinner or not. But this is different. It's really how to use it in a way to move forward
and more and more people.
Right.
Yeah. And then this is a great statement. Don't have that much time to talk about it, but if you will it, it is no dream. And I thought that's just phenomenal. If you will this thing, it's no longer a dream, it's reality now.
Right, so that's a statement, a quote from Theodore Herzl in the founding of the State of Israel, but that was what, when Elijah said, what did you learn? I learned, if we put our minds to it, we can do amazing things.
Yeah, so, and then there's another thing, just the church service itself, very moving, because Bright Star still had church on that Sunday. And so,
and a lot of Jews from Anshe Emet went into the church service and were transformed.
Yeah, and so the last thing is just that from this relationship, over $500,000 have been raised from these three entities right here to support the Bronzeville Dream Center, which is doing a lot of post-trauma counseling. Okay, and so and all of this has happened because of Pastor Harris, Rabbi Micah Siegel, they linking up together. Pastor Harris going to Israel, seeing some stuff there, wanting to bring it here, and voila, this is what we have here. So if you want more information about that, Bright Star Community Outreach, but also the MDiv School is playing a big part in that too, is because Rodney Carter, once again, our first year, he's the executive director of this program. So the MDiv School is training individuals that's doing this work. So I don't want you guys to think oh, that's just Bright Star stuff. No, the MDiv School is training 2 of the staff at Bright Star. So once again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wants to ask me questions, please, if people can stay for Q&A, that would be wonderful. But thank you all for coming, and I see you also learn to talk with your hands. Right?
We can.
I have a great instructor. I have a great instructor.
So there are any questions. And if you're going to class, you can leave kind of quietly.
Thank you.
I just want to say on behalf of the school how grateful I am that you shared this work with us today. Utterly inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're happy to stay if individuals have questions.
We thank you for listening to or viewing our podcast. For more information and for other podcasts, please see our website, divinity.uchicago.edu/podcasts. Copyright, the University of Chicago Divinity School.